Hello, and welcome to the second season of Ventures and Visionaries, episode 1. It's all about the revenue. This podcast is about vision and entrepreneurship, or in other words, business and innovation. I'm your host, Morty Hackle. Welcome to the show today. Our guest is Bob Gault, an expert on revenue generation and revenue growth. Perhaps the key question which drives success is to figure out how you maximize performance of the revenue generation engine. I am so excited to discuss that with Bob today. Bob, welcome.
What do you say, Morty? How are you? I'm not sure I like that word expert. Everybody's definition's a little bit different, but I appreciate the intro.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. How you doing? Okay today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, doing great. Getting ready for the weekend. How about you?
Nice. I'm excited. I'm enjoying the day. It's actually beautiful outside. So after we record, I'm maybe find a way to just get outside for a little bit.
Good for you. A little recess.
Exactly. Maybe, Bob, tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got to the point where, you've done CRO roles and things like that. Like, what does that mean and how you get there?
So I started way back, Morty, but I'll like cut it off and say my career started at Cisco. So I started off at Cisco back in 1998, and sometimes they say it's better to be lucky than good. And I started off at the heyday during the .com, and Cisco was right in the mix of everything. So I was a channel account manager there. I was there for 17 years, and 17 years seems like a long time. Yeah, but when you're with one company for 17 years and its growth, it's just pure growth. Every couple of years, you're getting a new job, which basically means that it seems like you're starting with a brand new company all over again. So by the last 4 or 5 years, I was a global vice president of service provider, managed service providers, cloud managed services, those types of things for Cisco. And after 17 years, I wanted to see, Morty, whether it was the Cisco brand or the Bob Gault brand or a combination of both. So I went off on my own and joined Extreme Networks. And that's where I became a CRO there.
Interesting. And how was that transition from being in one place for 17 years to a whole new challenge experience and maybe even role?
Yeah, it's a good question. I thought it was going to be much harder than it actually was. Now, it was good to join a company where a lot of the people were from Cisco already. So almost that culture and the DNA followed Cisco over to Extreme Networks. So that wasn't the huge shift there. The shift was just Extreme and who they were, a complete identity crisis in terms of who they were at that point in time. So I thought I was getting into something completely different than I actually was getting into. That was number one, because I started off as a worldwide channel leader over there. And after 3 or 4 months, lots of dysfunction, cultural dysfunction hit the company. And before you know it, they introduced me as the CRO. And so I just say the biggest thing I had to get used to is like Extreme. Nobody knew who they were. Cisco, everybody knew who they were. So, you went from selling where you were on the balls of your feet to selling where you were on the heels of your feet. You were actually defending who you were because nobody knew who Extreme was. And that was a big difference.
So you mean in the marketplace, meaning
Mhm.
people didn't know, or the company itself lacked identity?
Oh, good question. So I'd say that if you did a word association with Extreme, you asked 25 people within Extreme. If I say Extreme Networks, what will you say? I would get 25 different answers. And when you get 25 different answers, it just means the company's hitting an identity crisis. They might be average at everything, but they're not great at one thing. That was number one. Number two is like when you went into a customer meeting and you went in there with a Cisco business card, well, it was easy to get access to the right people. It was easy to navigate through a conversation. With Extreme, your very first 3 minutes is you're defending why you're there in front of the customer because nobody knows who they are. And it's that old axiom, people can't get fired for choosing Cisco. They can get fired for choosing Extreme. So you had to overcome that hurdle right out of the gate, which was a challenge.
Wow. So it sounds like you were really thrown into a difficult situation. How did you find the way to create a cultural cohesiveness and defend the reason for you being in the room?
Yeah, so the very first thing we needed to do, Morty, was like we did that word association. So we sent a poll out to the entire company. It says, when you say Extreme Networks, what do you think? So we had Extreme Networks had been in business for about 10 years up until that point. And people just didn't identify with Extreme. They bought Enterasys. So it was the combination of two companies. These two companies had two presidents, still had two presidents with one company. So there was not one Extreme. There was no vision. There was no strategy. There was no plan. There was no executable. So we had to create that entire framework and then communicate it out to the entire team to hope that evangelism would get some believers. And trust me, we walked out of the sales kickoff meeting. We were off the strip in Vegas. Think of this like seedy hotel room. The lights are hanging from the ceiling. It's dark. It's wood paneling. It's just not Vegas the way you're used to thinking about Vegas.
No,
And
no, not at all.
myself and the CEO, we just thought we hit it out of the park. We just thought we crushed that messaging. And at the end of the day, you're going to get some people that believe and some people that don't. That's just the way you need to walk. That's just the way it's going to be. And so the believers, they stayed with us. The non-believers didn't, and we just had to reinvent the company from there.
Interesting. So is that the biggest professional challenge to like completely reinvent the company, or, oh no, they were way worse ones than that?
Well, that was a hard challenge. That was a really hard challenge. Number one was it was a combination of a $300 million and a $300 million company, 600 million. Unfortunately, our revenue was really only about 450. Or we had an OpEx envelope assigned to $600 million. So that math just doesn't work, Morty. So the first thing we had to do is like, hey, congratulations, Bob, you're the CRO. Now take 25% of the cost out of the business. That's human beings. You're impacting their life, right? That's a hard thing to do. So once you get grounded and stabilized, that you have your OpEx aligned to your revenue, then it's really crafting that vision, the strategy, the plan, the executables, and just always communicating it so that people are believers. Because in the end, you were successful when the customer and internally, they all see you as one extreme. You have one approach to the marketplace. It's one taxonomy. It's one message to the company. And like everybody's all on the same page. That seems really easy. With a company of 1,000 people, that's really hard to pull off.
Today's show is sponsored in part by Pax8. Technology is evolving, and Pax8 is here to help you stay at the forefront of change. Using the power of data and AI, MSPs can take advantage of what the future holds. Pax8 lives at the intersection of community, education, and marketplace innovation. And whatever your goal is, will get you there. Get started at pax8.com. That's PAX8.com. Yeah, I would imagine, especially when it sounds like they didn't really have a good sense as to who they were.
They did not. And so Morty had worked. We just pounded the communications. We were just consistent with it. And before you knew it, we were a year and a half, our stock went from $2 to $6. And we said, well, let's go, right? Game on. So we started to acquire companies. So we made 4 acquisitions in 4 years. And that's the next biggest challenge. The number one challenge is reinventing the company. The second challenge is how do you take 4 different companies, 4 different cultures, 4 different infrastructures, tools, processes, procedures, people, and then integrate them and making sure you keep maintaining that culture. Good Lord, that's when you learn a lot, right? You learn a lot right there.
How much of that typically falls on the role, or did fall on you as the CRO, or is that really just like, well, that's more operations, for lack of a better term?
No, it's a good question. I would say it was within the C-suite level making those decisions, the COO, it's the CRO and the CEO, right? We're making sure that the message and then the people leader is engaged in that as well. And we're making sure that, internally we've got all the right messaging, and then we're dividing and conquer to each of our functional teams in terms of the messaging that we're sending. We're all communicating it in our own customized way, but the thread is very, very similar throughout to the team. So I'd say the responsibility is the CEO's always got responsibility, but then, you ensure that you're building a C-suite that you trust in, you have confidence in, you're all building that together.
How do you get a leadership team to align on the messaging? Meaning, like you explained before, that you went and did you sent out a survey, for lack of a better term, to the company to see what words resonate. But let's say, now you've developed the messaging. How do you ensure that, you said you have your own unique spin. Everybody does. How do you stay on point?
We tested a lot. So when I said that we sent out the messaging and we sent it out internally, says who's extreme, give me one word. Well, I did the same exact thing in a partner advisory board. I did the same exact thing in a channel advisory board. This takes time to do. You're not doing it, next Tuesday, it's going to be done. It takes you 3-4 months to get this done. So what you're doing is you're testing that with your channel partners and your customers. In terms, when I say extreme, don't even think about it. Give me one word. You compare that internally, then you do the messaging, and then you test it with trusted advisors like yourself. Like that we're doing. So I'm doing some partner advisory now, and immediately I'm going to a trusted advisor like you, Morty, and asking you: is the messaging, does the platform resonate? And if not, tell me what works, what doesn't, so we can reshape that and consider that in our messaging when we go back out.
Wow, Bob, this is really interesting stuff because, changing the culture of an organization is certainly difficult. And then going to market with that new culture, did, explain maybe how you go through a new version of imposter syndrome. Like obviously you're now coming out with new messaging, and last week it was that messaging. I don't know. I would think that I would have at least the few times when I've tried, experimenting with changing the way I present certain things. I always feel like I'm making it up as I go along, for lack of a better term.
Specifically, when I'm thinking about extreme, that was their problem. They were an imposter in the industry. They thought they were Cisco. They thought a little Cisco. Cisco can do everything. Well, we can do everything Cisco can do, but better. We're just smaller when we do it. It's like, no, you're being an imposter. That's not really the case. So part of the culture, part of the strategy is like, let's step back. Let's be really self-aware about who we are and who we are in the marketplace, who we can compete with and who we can't compete with. So we no longer casted the net over the entire world, Morty, and said that we are just a smaller Cisco. We pulled out of the service provider space. It's really easy to invest in certain markets. It's really easy to invest in technologies. It's harder to divest in it. People are emotionally attached to it. People think if you divest in something, it's like, oh my God, the world's going to end, the company's going to fold. It's like, no, we're going to be okay. We're going to divest in the service provider space. We're going to divest out of South America. But it doesn't mean you're no longer getting the money in. We're going to repurpose that money, input it in the areas where we know we're going to be really good at. We're no longer going to be Fortune 500 company. We're a high-end commercial, low-end enterprise company. That's who we are. And that's how we're going to approach the market with our products, with our marketing, with our marketing. And so that was the messaging we had to reinvent.
You said a couple of things that really resonate with me. One is being self-aware. And I think that is just, it's enormously powerful to just realize what you're good at and what you shouldn't be doing, and what you can fix and what you cannot. And how do you go about understanding that vis-a-vis services and or products that you're putting out into the marketplace. And I would imagine if you had a successful company that merged with another successful company, that it was a pretty big blow to people's ego to say, hey, we can't do that anymore because that's just not good for the totality.
One of the ways we cracked that code is that we needed to make sure, because you can have the best tools, processes, procedures in the world, and you're inheriting them through the acquisitions. But if you don't have the people and the leadership, none of it matters. So we needed to make sure that we were pulling the right senior leadership from each of the acquisitions and putting them in the right roles, because their teams follow them. These teams listen to them. So if you can convince them that the divestments that you're making, that the new mission is going, we're going to go take that hill. Now we're going to take all the hills. They really help you to convert and get the believers from the acquired companies and the people, because I didn't know them. I didn't know them, but they knew the leaders that were coming in. So I made them leaders within my team. So there was continuity. There was a comfort level and a confidence level in that leadership team. They helped with the message.
So you've been doing this for a hot minute, give or take, and I have a question for you about people. How do you have a gut feeling about people? Is it, how do you know that what got somebody to a prior role and now they need to step up, that they'll be successful? Are there any clues that you can give to any of our entrepreneurial listeners who might be thinking about these types of issues, and the guidance that you may be able to provide to help people become a little bit more insightful in their people selection and training?
It's hard, right? It's hard because people tell you whatever they want to hear during a 1 hour interview. And then you can put them through the paces to meet 8 other people, and then you compare notes. So That is the one thing you want to do, is you actually do want to make sure you're putting people through the paces, because at the end of the day, at a certain point, their true colors will come out. Number two, Morgan, fortunately, you and I were from the Northeast. Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey, there's an authenticity meter that we're just born with, right? Which we just come out of the womb that way. And it's like, I can immediately smell like whether somebody's being disingenuous and not authentic in terms of the way they're answering a message, the way they're just presenting themselves. It's just like, yeah, that just doesn't smell right to me. Um, Two other things that are important to me is curiosity. Like I really need to hire somebody who's got a skill set that's innate, that's like, they're a human being. Ask questions, like, be curious. Don't have all the answers. Be willing to learn and be coachable, because that means you can go from a B player to an A player. You just don't know it all. So I think a curiosity meter is really, really important. Be bold and ask questions. Like, people like talking about themselves, but customers do as well. So ask customers personally about themselves and about the business. And good Lord, you're going to learn so much about that. But if you hire somebody that is not bold, and they don't have a curiosity meter, that's a problem for me. And then lastly is IQ and EQ. Like, you could be the smartest person in the world and geez, what happened to your EQ? They're both equally important. But when you're running a sales team, EQ could be just as important, if not more, than IQ. And so just having good instincts and reading the crowd and knowing customers, team, what makes them tick, how to address a problem, just having the right EQ. Because when you have a team and customers, you can't treat them all the same way. It's all about the how, not the what. It's how you treat them, and treat people differently. That's the EQ part of it.
So it almost sounds like, just at least on the EQ side, that having the right people can compensate for lack of processes in certain situations.
100%, right? Because you got to have people that, especially depends on the company. I've worked with a couple startups now. I'm working with a couple now, and then if you don't hire the right people, some people it's going to be beneath them to roll up their sleeves and do work they didn't do before. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're at a certain life cycle in this company right now, and you need to be able to have the emotional intelligence and the IQ to know that you just can't go out and sell, right? You've got to make sure that there's good hygiene in your CRM. You've got to make sure that you're working with the marketing team. Nobody else is going to do it. Don't wait for anybody else to do it. You go do it. You have to do it. If you don't think that person's got the IQ or the EQ to do that, then they're the wrong person.
Interesting. So maybe we'll talk for a moment about some of the differences between, large companies and enormous amounts of resources, at least in theory, versus a smaller, more entrepreneurial organization. Where do you personally find more satisfaction, and how would you recommend people scale their companies?
Yeah, so I find more satisfaction in that small, growing from small to mid-size. That's It's a ton of fun. Like, everybody can define small differently and then mid-size differently. But the thing I like is having control over my own destiny. I really like that. Like, if I'm going to work really hard at something, I want to know that me and the team had a direct or an indirect outcome of the results. In a big company, everybody can say no, but who can say yes? Right? I just want to know that everybody has a say in everything, because everybody wants to raise their awareness, because the company's so big. Everybody said, yeah, I did that. No, I did that. I did that. It's like, no, not everybody did that. Just go do stuff. They have a team to help them. So everybody wants to declare victory and call it their own in a large company. It's called a hidden agenda. It's called politics. It's called hierarchy. And to me, they're just distracting, right? They're just all different ways to impact productivity across the company. And it just creates a toxicity across the company that it's not needed, right? With this small and mid-sized company, you hire the right people, you're entrepreneurs, you're going to move dirt from one side of the road to the other to clear a clear path, not just for them, but for everybody else to be successful. It's just like, there's just an entrepreneurship with a smaller company that's just so rewarding.
And it sounds like that really makes a big difference for you.
Oh God, yeah, everybody wants to know when they get up out of bed in the morning that the thing they're doing is impacting and making a difference in that company. And when you're with a Cisco, you're with an IBM, you're not sure that when you get up in the morning, what you're doing is really making an impact to the company that day or that week or that year. You just don't know because you got a team of hundreds surrounding you, right? They're doing stuff for you. But when you're with a different company, you know that everything you do, good or bad, it's going to be seen and it's going to have an impact, positive or negative, in the company.
What about giving it your all? The cultures that I've seen is that, it's easy to have different kinds of people who kind of check in and check out and do maybe the bare minimum or maybe just like a little bit above the bare minimum. You have people who really like hit it out of the park. And then you have the other ones that are hitting it out of the park but are inconsistent. Is there any magic formula to sniff the performance and the consistency out of people?
Activity, 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 activity. You're never going to be successful. You're never going to be consistently successful if you're not active. And Morty, it sounds so simple, but you should give somebody a $5 million ARR goal, and they're making 20 calls a week and 3 appointments a week. It's like the math's not working. Like, how are you ever going to get to your number? And then the next month they crush their number. It's like because maybe they were holding everything back or they just got lucky, whatever it is. So I much prefer somebody hitting 85% of their number on a very consistent basis than somebody doing 130 and then 30% and then 130. That means they don't care enough. There's no other way to put it. They just don't care enough because I know they can do it. Uh, it's like a baseball player. It's like that they can hit. If they get one hit a week or whatever that might be, it's probably a bad analogy. But at the end of the day, if I know you can do it 1 month and then you're waiting 2 months, you can do it again. You're just not active enough. And come and ask for help. Don't be proud to do that. So for me, that's if you're not active, you're not going to be successful, and that's really easy to inspect.
Really, well, we'll get to that in just 1 second, but it really sounds like what you're saying is essentially the Moneyball theory, right? Like you need to get on base. It doesn't matter how you get on base, but more people get on base. For more bases, you score more runs. You score more runs, you win the game, and you do it more with greater consistency. And, I think what you're advocating is, in fact, the inspection of said numbers. So for the people who are just building, like, eh, what what would I, if I'm scaling my company from 5, 10, 15 million up and I'm trying to build a sales force, like what should I how should I think about that?
What's the market you're going after? So obviously you have to do the due diligence around the market. You have to do the due diligence around your product, and is it a better mousetrap than anybody else? And you have the bullet points to be able to, the silver bullets to be able to communicate that. What I recognize is that companies that are 1 million to 5 million, if they can bring somebody in who knows the marketplace and they have a Rolodex of people, let's just say you have the best offering in the marketplace, but you just don't know where to go. Like you just want to be able to get at bats. You don't have the Rolodex to do that. If you can find somebody who's senior in the industry, who's got Rolodex, who's got a Rolodex, who give you access to the right people. And Morty, what I come to recognize is that people, you have a personal brand. People will take your first call. People will take your first call because you did something for them in the past that says it gave you credibility and the trust. You'll get the second and third call because of the product. The personal brand will get you the second and third call. So if the product hunts, you bring in a senior person to help you like soften up the ground, create a couple wins. You're getting some revenue, you're getting some money, and now you're getting some money, and now you can put a client success person in. Now you can put maybe an inside salesperson in because you have money and you don't have to go ask for it. You're asking because a senior person help you do that. They're not expensive either to do that, right? You figure out a way to, whether it's equity in the back end, whether it's an hourly rate, whatever it is, and then over time, you build a junior team out, and then maybe you build that senior team out. But that's the way I would do it if I were building a company out, which is I would go find somebody senior, it's got a Rolodex, get a good personal brand, can give you access to the people, get you some wins, make you some money, and then you can use that money to start to reinvest in the go-to-market.
What about a slightly larger company, maybe say, 75 to 200 million? How would they think about, jumping to the next curve, if you will?
New avenues of revenue. That's the way I would look at it. So generally companies that are 50 to 75 million, they're really, really good selling into the MSP space. Just made that up. They could be really good selling the enterprise, but generally just say they're really good selling into the MSP space. Now they will get to $100 million, but I call it success by 1,000 paper cuts. They'll get there. It'll be a slow trickle. It'll happen over time because it's kind of like your handicap. It's going from an 18 to 12 is easy. Going from a 12 to an 8, it becomes much, much harder. Going from an 8 to a 3, oh good Lord, you're not going to do that. But same thing in business, right? So 50 to 75, okay, 75 to 100, because the MSP marketplace is finite. There's only so much you can sell to them unless your product features, your features get rolled out, you can sell through. So my view of that one is pivot. Don't lose sight of the MSP space. Still double down in that, still accelerate the growth there. But how do you pivot to build out a channel? And that channel can help you recruit and onboard commercial and enterprise customers. So now you're building a new avenue of revenue. How can you pick that up and port that success into Northern Europe, the UK? How do you pick that up and turn it into ANZ? That's what I would look at, Morty. It's just like new avenues of revenue without getting distracted in that vertical. That's what we work.
So we're talking a little bit about, the activities that I, as a revenue generating or, somebody who carries a responsibility for certain revenue, I need to have a lot of consistent activity in my world. What about the people who soften up the ground on the marketing side? How do you think, at least from a strategic standpoint, like how do you leverage some of their strengths and their abilities to try and make it easier for you to go to market and win those activities?
That's a good. That's a good question. My view of it is marketing. Marketing's a three-legged stool. They're all about awareness, building pipeline or demand gen, and then content, right? Web page. And so for you and I, for that question there, I think it's the middle leg of the stool, which is around demand gen and building pipeline. But it also weaves into awareness, right? They kind of like, so how can marketing help build the right SEO on your web page so that when somebody types something in, your name's coming up. So thinking about how do they raise the level of awareness for you as a company, and the ways to be able to do that, it's through SEO, it's through Gartner, through Forrester, through the Millennium Alliance, whoever that might be. It's just those different areas. That's the one thing I would do. The turnkey pieces are events, right? Just going to all the different events, but don't spend a lot of money on them. People get crazy spending a lot of money on events. Spend $30,000 on a booth. It's like, really, do you really need to do that? If you're a company that wants to leverage marketing, leverage events, tag team with another company and draft off of their brand, draft off of their booth to get you into the event, and just go around, shake hands, and kiss babies. Right? That's how you're going to raise your personal brand. That's how you raise the company brand. You'll start to build pipeline. From there, you can start to grow into maybe spending a little bit more money on events. So doing events is one thing, but then feeding the machine in the back end so you can follow up on those events is another thing. Like, so how are you going to do that? Making sure that you've got a good closed loop process between the pipeline that's being built, it's then being vetted by the BDRs. The BDRs are determining whether it's a good lead or a bad lead, and then they hand it off to your sales team so they can go close that down, right? And there's whole math to make that worth. But at the end of the day, if you're paying more than $125 for a customer for lead, that's a lot of money
It's a lot of money.
from a marketing perspective.
Well, certainly thank you for that insight. I think that's really, really great. Um, and I want to go in a perhaps a slightly different direction just for a minute, if that's okay with you, Bob. We've talked we've talked a lot about, let's call it, for lack of a better term, the manual side of this job, all the work that the people need to do. What's your vision on where AI is going to take the revenue side of the house?
I can see AI putting productivity back into the hands of the salespeople. I don't think it's going to take salespeople out of this. Sales is still a human touch. So I think it's the one profession so far, at least between now and I'll just say the next 10 years, where I don't think sales are going to be impacted by AI, but I do think it'll put productivity back into the hands of sales by leveraging AI to do follow-up notes, by leveraging AI to make sure that your CRM is clean, by leveraging AI to work with marketing so that so marketing and sales can work together to put campaigns out faster. Your follow-up's going to be better. I just feel like productivity back in the hands, leveraging AI so that I'm not doing a customized email all the time. I'm recording it on Gong. Gong's taking that, threading it in AI, and then it's packaging up an email response that it looks like the customer came directly to me. That honestly could save 25% of time a week, which is 25% more time I can spend with customers.
Interesting. Wow, that's a really great tip. What would you have what would you have wished that someone would have told you earlier on in your career that you had to learn the hard way?
You don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to do everything yourself. Trust the team around you. Trust the people around you. And if you don't trust the people around you and have confidence in them that they can help you out, go find somebody else that can, or move that person out, right? Because they're not the right people. So I would just say that one of the things what was really hard for me to let go was I thought I had to provide the answers to everything. And if I didn't have the answers, I had to go find the answers for my team so I can provide that to them. I just thought that that was my job. And lo and behold, it's like there's a key word called trust. And when you have trust in your team, they trust in you, and all of a sudden there's this cohesion between everybody. And by the way, it just makes your life a lot easier if you can trust and have confidence in your team that you don't have to do everything. They can actually do some things, but that's why you're hired. So yeah, I had somebody, Morty, who told me when I went from a director to a VP, my very first VP job, they said to me, Bob, this is going to astound you, but the higher up you go in a company, your knowledge isn't going to go away. Your answers to questions aren't going away. Don't be so forthcoming and sharing it. Teach your people to do it. Don't do it for them, and they'll learn and grow, and so will you. So you almost have to disguise the fact that you know more than you do as you move up, because you have to trust the people around you, because that's why.
What's your what's your view on, obviously we're both working from home today. What's your view on work from home and how that may or may not impact the young people coming into the workforce these days?
I'm the typical Philadelphia Northeast, but I hate it, right? I just, it's not, there's a collaboration that's missing. There's a cultural connection that's missing when you work from home. There's almost like an entitlement that comes from working from home, that when you ask somebody to come into the office, they almost feel like until like you're putting them out. It's like, well, wait a minute. So I just think that the brainstorming, the thought leadership, just the think tank, just the cultural vibe. I mean, Morty, remember growing up in the business and then after 5 o'clock, it's just like, let's go grab a cocktail.
Mhm.
I mean, how often do you see the next generation of people going to grab a cocktail after work? They don't, because they're all in different spots. So how do you build a network even as you get older?
Yeah.
You and I built a network because of what we established when we were younger, because we grew up with these people, we went out to drinks with them, we shared groceries, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just all missing going from virtual work.
My wife says you can't make new old friends.
Yep. Yep. It's well put. Yeah.
It's a very, very true statement.
My son, Morty, he's on his second job now out of college, and he's never stepped foot into a company, never stepped foot into an office building. His first company never even gave him any swag. Swag's not important, but it's a part of the culture. It's a part of the fun, right? His second company gave him a water bottle. Well, Morty, you would have think they gave him a pot of gold. It was just something that made them felt like he was connected to the company, but he hasn't worked with anybody in an office. It's almost a shame.
Yeah, no, I hear that. It's I really worry between, where technology is creating, um, I want to call it replacement value to a certain degree of the entry level work. Um, so, I'm sure this happened when PCs came into the workforce and all the people that did the manual work around that kind of activities felt the same way. I just, I don't think I think I was too young to really appreciate the amount of upheaval that that created. But right now I'm starting to think about it perhaps from a slightly different perspective. Like what does that do for a young person who's, graduating college with perhaps even a lot of debt, and think about what they do, or somebody in the middle of their career, and how do they switch careers with so much of this pressure coming from so many different directions. um, but I think what you mentioned before, like it sounds like what you're saying is invest in your network, invest in people relationships, make sure that you develop good habits and have good follow up and follow through. Your personal brand is key, because if you don't invest in that and your word isn't worth anything, then what in the world are you doing? And then on top of that, associate yourself with good companies and good people and build something of value.
You summarize that perfectly, right? It's the stuff they don't teach you in school, which is networking 101. Build a network of people because you'll never know when they'll need you or you'll need them. And Morty, I worked for 10 years for Sprint before I worked for Cisco. So I'm really dating myself, but I'm still in touch with those people from Sprint going back to the late 80s or early 90s. And guess what? We're not just connected personally, we're connected professionally as well. Like I'm helping them out, they're helping me out. Why? Because we're a brotherhood. We were a family, like we grew up together in the business and we were all virtual. It would have never happened. So
It's definitely all about the people. And I have to say that while I certainly appreciate the flexibility of being able to record something like this remotely and being able to have a face-to-face meeting, I mean, who of us was not guilty being on a conference call and doing something else entirely and not paying attention? At least this way, but by the same token, I was so happy when the world opened up again and people were able to meet and hang out and spend some time. And yeah, we're doing productive stuff, but the relationship and the connection only makes it richer.
what I'm doing, I don't want us to be one of those two of those old curmudgeons. It's like, we wish it was back the way it was because there's some goodness to it, right? You and I doing this, if you would ask, I would have had to go up to New York. Not that I don't love New York, but blah, blah, blah. I would have had to go up to New York today. We would have gone to a production studio. Like, we would have had to do that. So there's some goodness to it. I just think we over rotate.
The two guys from the Muppets. I think that's going to be our recap. Waldo and Statler, or something like that.
And we're dating ourselves there.
Why not? Why not? In theory, the purpose of this is to share wisdom with the next generation so they can pick this up and take it and
We hope it's wisdom.
learn a thing or two.
There's probably a lot of people just rolling their eyes.
Yeah, rolling their eyes.
We'll do what we can do.
Bob, I want to thank you. But before I ask you if there's any final word that you want to share with our listeners, and if people want to reach out to you with any questions or opportunities they would like to discuss with you, how should they go about doing that?
They can reach me it's bgault0924 at gmail.com if they want to catch up with me there. I really appreciate it, Morty. This is that networking piece, right? You and I met a year ago, got to know each other professionally, but personally as well. And I just want to carry it on. This is the stuff that's missing in the business world that needs to come back. And I really appreciate the opportunity to catch up with you here.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm seeing that a lot of companies are coming into a much more work from office centric perspective, at least from the technological piece. So I'm seeing that a lot of companies are, focusing 3, 4 days in the office and maybe providing a little extra flexibility, maybe around a Friday or a Monday, but, really trying to get the bulk of the week together with people to collaborate and work together, which is kind of nice again.
Yep, agree, 100%.
Bob, thank you. This was really great. I learned a lot and I appreciate your insights, and I look forward to chatting with you some more. I'm going to wrap up. Bob, thank you again for joining us. Ventures and Visionaries is grateful to be sponsored by KJ Technology. KJ Technology is a unique business because it enables business function. Their technology advisory, cybersecurity, and proactive processes are designed to solve real world challenges. For a complimentary consultation, please email info@kjtechnology.com or call 646-556-6500. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.